refugees. And Regen Movement is who we're collaborating with, and Sokeel, I mean not Sokeel, Grace, if you would introduce what Regen does.
Oh, I can introduce about what Regen does. Hi, my name is Chungdae Kim. I also go by JD. I'm the co-founder of Regeneration Movement, and we are so excited to co-host this event with Link at Emory. So what we do, we are a nonprofit with a mission to empower the global diasporas, including the refugees and immigrants in the United States, to be the peacemakers of this world. And within that mission, we do 3 programs, each different from each other. So first part of what we do is we empower the youth through education. And so we especially focus on the youth and high school students in Clarkson area. And we do local leadership academy, as well as SAT and ACT prep programs, as well as college mentorship programs. And second is how we create spaces for conversations. And today's event is actually part of that. So we host events that relates to the values of regeneration movement, where a lot of conversations can happen, where a lot of different thoughts can be exchanged. And thirdly, we also do advocacy for peace. So that's regeneration in a nutshell. You can visit our website at rgmovement.com or follow us on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about us. But back to Daisy. Thank you.
Thank you. So first we'll begin by introducing our guest panel. Thanks to Regen Movement, we have 2 awesome guests who I'll start off by introducing, and then we'll get into some questions for them. First, we have Sokeel Park. He is the South Korea country director at Link and the director of research and strategy at Link. And I don't know if you guys have heard of the documentary, The Changmadang Generation, but he helped direct that in 2017. If you want to learn more about him or more about that specific documentary, feel free to check out these QR codes. And we also have Eunhee Park. She is a freedom fighter and storyteller. She escaped from North Korea when she was 21, and she's currently a business student studying in South Korea. If you want to learn more about her, she has a YouTube channel, and you can subscribe using that QR code. And so we'll get into some questions for them. All right, so I'll spotlight each of you as I ask you questions. That way people can see your faces. So beginning with Sokeel, I think the first question we want to ask you is, what is your experience being in media and talking about North Korea?
Sure. So as it happens, this wasn't planned, but I'm actually in a studio right now. I'm in the TV Chosun studio. So I'm not in anywhere interesting, but it's kind of a back room. I'll just show you very quickly. Because in about an hour, I'll actually have to go and like get my makeup done and the hair and do a pre-meeting. And today we're actually filming a show that some people may know. It's called Morambon Club. So it's one of these shows that has, you know, what is it, like 10 North Koreans, you know, people from North Korea who've defected to South Korea. And then there's like, you know, some funny South Koreans, and there's like the South Korean journalist who's kind of an expert on North Korea. And then there's me, and I don't know what I'm doing really, but you know, I sit there, I say something sometimes. And so, you know, there's these kind of programs that have sprung up in the last few years. A lot of the media engagement is maybe just more traditional television news and, you know, like print journalism, newspapers, and so on. And what I try and do through engaging with the media is basically trying to bring more attention to a broader picture of North Korea. I think, you know, overall, if we're talking about media representations of North Korea, I think the big problem here is that there's quite a lot of media attention on North Korea, but nearly all of that attention goes to Kim Jong-un, one North Korean person, Kim Jong-un, and nuclear weapons and missiles, just one issue. North Korea is a country of 25 million people. It's a whole country, it's a culture, it's a society, it's an economy. You know, there are cities, there's countryside, there's young people that are making changes. There's the human rights violations and humanitarian difficulties that people face, especially these days, in the situation so affected by the pandemic and the increased restrictions. So I think, and our organization Link thinks, that it's really important that more attention comes to those kinds of aspects, right? More to 25 million North Korean people that aren't Kim Jong-un, and issues that aren't just nuclear weapons and missiles. And so through working with journalists and through working with broadcasters, we try and encourage more of that. We try and, build more of a platform for people who are from North Korea that can, have such an important voice and story to share. People like Eunhee as well. And so that's the kind of work that we're trying to do with the media internationally and here in South Korea.
Yeah, and you spoke about this reality TV show that you're on right now. Would you say that North Korean media representation in South Korea has changed over the years?
Yeah, I think that it has. It changes sometimes with the political atmosphere and, the relations between North Korea and South Korea. And also, I think over the last, 10 years or so, I think that it's changed a lot because of the input of North Korean refugees or North Korean defectors. Before, basically, it was a lot more simple and narrow. North Korea was pretty much just approached as a political and security issue. And so it was just kind of through the news, and people only really cared if there was a chance of conflict or something big happening in the relations between the North Korean government and the South Korean government. Over the last few years, I think that part of the change has been more North Koreans, not just going on TV, but also, like only starting their own YouTube channels and diversifying and increasing the number of stories and voices and perspectives that we get to learn about North Korea from. So that's very positive. It's still not enough, I think, but it's a very positive start. And one way of saying it is that even more so internationally, we hear so much about North Korea from the perspective of political scientists and maybe missile experts and these kind of people. And we hear so little from the perspective of North Korean people, which is the most important way to learn about a country. It's from the people that live there or have lived there. And so this is a positive direction. It's not enough so far, but it's we need to increase these kind of things.
For sure. Thank you so much. And Eunhee, we just want to ask you about your experiences being in media. We talked about your YouTube channel, but anything else in South Korea, globally?
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. And I'm so honored to be here to share my stories and my experiences. First of all, I was the regular guest, the TV show named Imangap. I don't know how can I interpret. But my experiences was like cool and also painful, I can say, because you have to talk about the stories you don't want to remember somehow, and you don't want to just you want to forget. And also when you, especially when you talk about your family members, and it was so painful. And several months I had a nightmare, and I decided, okay, not to go to show anymore, because it was like provide the questions and the topics already fixed what audiences want to hear. I thought it is not my purpose that I want to share my stories, what I have experienced in North Korea. So I decided not to go and then not to be guest anymore. And then I started my YouTube channel. Like it was so joyful because I can be, master of my life, what I want to tell to the world, and what I had experienced in North Korea based on my contents. And when I share my stories with the audiences from abroad or in Korea, they can realize how much they are guaranteed, with the given freedom and the free culture, or like they created by themselves. So yeah, I can say it was cool and also painful.
And when you lived in North Korea, how would you say that the world was portrayed?
When I was in North Korea, like what I knew about the world.
Mm-hmm. Just through like media portrayal or what you've learned?
I can say from the like one channel, there is just one channel exist in North Korea. So we don't hear much about the world. But illegally I watched the South Korean dramas and American movies and I knew that uh like there are different countries exist and there are different lives that we can live as a normal human being, but from the media like broadcast of North Korea, always that is the propaganda vehicle for North Koreans to follow what they wanna control. So yeah, that was what I knew. It's just like America is our enemy's country, and South Korean people are struggling with the basic needs, and they don't have enough money to go to educate themselves. That was what I knew.
Yeah, and after you left North Korea, what was your impression of just how North Korea is portrayed in South Korea? And were you surprised?
Actually, I was quite surprised because of the like portraying of Kim Jong Il and Kim Jong Un. That what I really admired and respected in North Korea. And then they make just like fun things, and even all individuals in free country, like what is it, imitating of Kim Jong Un's hairstyle. That things like wow, that was the free country, but in North Korea, we never imagined that stuff to against North Korean government. But it was like fantastic for me. But also the other impression of the North Korean portrayed to so about their stories in South Korea. Somehow I feel it's just a focused negative issues because 25 individuals live in North Korea, but somehow people want to hear sad story. We want to be moved by emotional stories, right? So broadcast also media is a business industry. They have to make money. They have to make income. So they just focus on limited topics. So that was what I thought about. Like, okay, I'm gonna be the one to share the real stories of North Korea.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to jump in there maybe for a second, I do think that that's only hit on a really important problem there. Unfortunately, it's not unique to North Korea. The media tends to focus on sensational or extreme aspects of an issue. It focuses on kind of like the top 1% and the bottom 1%, and of any issue. And we do have to remember on North Korea as well as other countries when we see things through the media that there's a lot there in the middle that we don't see typically because the media tends to focus on the extreme ends. And so, yeah, I think, what Eunhee and other North Korean friends are doing in terms of taking that media power into their own hands and creating media themselves and putting it out on YouTube and other channels that just shows a more diverse array of real North Korean stories, voices, perspectives. I think that is really important, and so that deserves our attention. And if we can not just listen but also share those stories and those channels, I think try and use our own social media power to amplify those things. I think that's really valuable as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's really important to have those diverse stories. Just a quick plug, if you guys want to look at the link at Emory Instagram, in the past week, we've been sharing different resources that you guys can look at to view different stories. I think one of them is also in his YouTube channel. So if you all want to look at that, that's one resource that can be helpful for everyone. In the meantime, I'm also going to share this screen to talk about just media portrayal in America and like in our perspective of North Korea. And if you all have questions right after this, we'll take questions if you want to raise your hands and ask them or type them in the chat. So just keep thinking. So first off, these are pictures that you would see if you look up South Korea, the Netherlands, and even America inside like a quick Google Images search, which is like very beautiful pictures, landscapes, flags, that's what we see. But if you look up North Korea, this is really all you get in a quick Google image search, which is really telling about just the media portrayal of North Korea in all over the world, outside of North Korea. And even if you look up North Korean people, which you would think has a different outcome, you would really only see, again, pictures of Kim Jong-un, the army, military, just all these things that are kind of alarming and doesn't really highlight the actual people in North Korea. These are some of the just shows and headlines, like news headlines that you would see when you first look up North Korea. On the left, there's the very famous show Crash Landing on You and The Interview, the movie that was released in America. And then there's also, if up here, Imanga, which is what Eunhee talked about. She was on that show actually, which loosely translates to Now on My Way to Meet You. If you all want to look at these, it shows like a small portion of how North Korea is portrayed outside of North Korea. And on the right side, we see just news like headlines. And as you can see, half of these headlines has to do with like the military or just kind of alarming topics. And a lot of things focus on Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-un's wife. And a lot of things aren't being fully portrayed. So for now, I'm going to stop sharing screen and we'll go into just discussion and just asking questions from the people who have come. If you guys have any questions, please like raise your hands. It can be for Sokeel, for Eunhee, for everyone who's here today. Just the floor is open.
So maybe while people are typing out their questions, to add just one more on the problem here, I think that was a great description of the narrative problem, the image problem, and how that's made. To talk a little bit about the effects of this, I think that if we zoom out, right, if we look at the bigger picture here, North Korea and the fact that 25 million ordinary people, like everybody in this call, North Koreans are exactly the same as all of us, but they live in the most closed and repressive country in the world. It's, if you hear the stories of, and as Eunhee said, we shouldn't just focus on the more traumatic or tragic or sad stories, but there are a lot of those as well. And if we do hear and listen to those, I mean, it's incredible what so many North Korean people have gone through and are going through today. And the scale of suffering is outrageous, and we should be outraged by it, and the world should be outraged by it, and we should do something about it as well. And it doesn't apply to the people in this call because everybody here is here because we're interested and we want to do something about it. But if we think about at the global scale, internationally, in the United States, in South Korea, and around the world, there's really not that many people that are actually doing something about North Korea. The number of people that in a given year might donate to causes to support North Korean people or North Korean refugees, the number of NGOs that exist, the number of activists, and those NGOs and activists, they tend to be very poorly resourced. And so I think that this is one of the ultimate kind of problems that results from this narrative and image that the international media has created around North Korea, right? The way that we see North Korea determines the way we react to this issue. And when it's just portrayed as Kim Jong-un and nuclear weapons, there's not that much that people are going to do about that, right? Like your average kind of citizen in New York or London or Seoul, what can they do about a dictator and nuclear weapons? But if it's more about ordinary North Korean people, then maybe we can empathize just, as people to people, like we do with people in our own communities or people around the world. And then we can actually be more mobilized as allies of the North Korean people and people who support change for 25 million North Korean people and ultimately the freedom for 25 million North Korean people. But that's only going to come if we change the way that we see North Korea. I think, you know, the access that we have to stories and images on North Korea, and really elevating the place, you know, to talk a little bit like how people talk these days, you know, centering our frame on North Korea around North Korean people, not centering on Kim Jong-un and nuclear weapons, but centering on North Korean people. That, I think, will change the way that the world and also governments around the world ultimately will interact with this issue. So this is one of the most important things about the issue, I think, actually, is the way that we understand North Korea, the way that we see it, and therefore the way that we react to this issue. And this is one of the reasons why there's been too little progress over the last few decades on North Korea.
Yeah, thank you. I think that really helps to answer the question, like how media can reform to portray North Korea, which is Millie's question in the chat. We have another question from in the chat. It's, could you expand on the experiences that North Korean refugees face, not only in South Korea, but around the world? And how can negative stereotypes against refugees be addressed and remedied? And either you, Sokeel, or Eunhee can answer that.
I think that's probably more for Eunhee. And then if you know, if there's anything to add, then I can. So Eunhee, do you maybe want to talk about you know, the stereotypes around North Korean refugees that you might have experienced in South Korea? The kind of, you know, prejudice or stereotypes? You're muted, by the way.
Yeah, there are some stereotypes. Oh my God. Sorry. There are some stereotypes of powers like to North Korean defectors. I think it caused by media, what portrayed in media about North Korea. So mostly they focus on the negative issues, like extreme just news about the Kim Jong-un and Kim Il-sung, and also the poverty. You know, the way of the portraying of North Korea from the media is like the childhood, my childhood, not all like 20s and teenage life. North Korea, objectively, we see the North Korea as has changed a lot as well, but the media just focus on the like the traditional life, what my grandparents, my mother lived. So that was frustrating for me. So because of that, people think North Korean people are uneducated and they are from a poor country, like treat us like the people from a developed country, like Philippines and the Bangladesh, whatever. So when they treated us, they don't treat us like equally position. You are like they usually underestimated our potential. They don't see what we go through and what we have been through to make our better lives. They just focus on our background, where we are born. Actually, we cannot change the past, but we can change our future. But they don't give us the opportunity that we can make our lives better. That was the big problem for me. Because of that, it's not easy to find a job, and because of that stereotype, like North Korean defectors are not easy to adjust in South Korea.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we actually see with a lot of our North Korean friends in South Korea is people hiding their identity, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you know, if you look the same, and the thing that might give you away is your accent, because of course there are different dialects and accents in the Korean Peninsula. But that's something that people can change as well. It's kind of like a British person going to America and changing the accent so they sound more American. Not that any British people would do that, I hope not. But you know, it's like that. If you do that, then you know, you could just kind of live whilst hiding your identity. And I have North Korean friends that, you know, it took them a while to be confident enough to tell their South Korean friends that actually they're from North Korea. Because again, if we step back, for South Korean people, most of them have never met a North Korean person, right? That's one of the things that we should remember. There's 50 million South Koreans, and there's a little bit over 30,000 North Koreans that have come here. And a lot of the North Koreans that come here, they don't go around, you know, kind of loudly advertising the fact that they are from North Korea. And so if you go out on the street in Seoul and stop 100 people, 100 South Koreans, and ask if you've ever met a North Korean person, they'll probably look at you funny. They'll probably be like, I mean, how do you not know that like it's divided and we can't meet North Korean people? So there's a lot of unfamiliarity, and you know, as Eunhee mentioned, some of the kind of negative stereotypes. And so it's understandable that a lot of North Koreans will kind of, you know, live in the closet, if you like, as a North Korean defector in South Korea, just pretend like they're South Korean like everybody else. I do think it's really important that more North Korean refugees gain the confidence and, you know, feel that they will be accepted, so that they can actually just, you know, come out, if you like, as from North Korea, because really helpful in getting more South Korean people used to the fact that, oh, there are some people from North Korea that live in South Korea and they're not that different to us. You know, yeah, sure, they may have had some different experiences, but at the end of the day, they're not that different to us, and we can just relate to them in, you know, in a similar way that we would relate to anybody else. So there is a, you know, there's a bigger picture where a lot of South Koreans just haven't had the chance so far. And so I think it's really important that more South Koreans, especially young South Koreans, get this chance to see North Korean people in a different way, including in person, and, you know, these days, especially through social media and online. This is a really important part of the progress we need to make.
Yeah, and I think in the chat, Soo-young Park's question is very related to that. Could you share some aspects of North Korea and North Korean people that aren't often shown in the media?
You want to take a stab at that, Eunhee? What's
Go
not
for it.
shown about North Korea?
I like Sokeel met lots of North Korean defectors, so somehow I feel like he is a better known person about North Korea than me, because, you know, North Korea, it's very there is no freedom of movement, so I don't know much about others' life in other city and other province. And now I'm learning, but I guess I was busy to adjust and resettle down in South Korea. I am still busy to make my life better. But Sokeel already settled down, and they've met lots of North Korean defectors and hear about their stories and make her work to have North Korea to be free. So you go first, and then I will do later.
Okay. So maybe some of the aspects that traditionally have not been shown a lot in the media. I think that basically it is a lot of the more normal human experiences of North Koreans inside the country, not the more extreme ends, right? So not the, you know, explicitly political, you know, being a soldier marching or crying when one of the Kim leaders dies, or the more, you know, maybe some of the more extreme suffering. All of that is important to know about, but I think it's also really important that we have a more three-dimensional view and understanding of North Korea as a society where, you know, at the end of the day, yes, it is very different to live in North Korea. You know, you don't have access to the internet or international communication. There is a lot of political restrictions on what you can do or what you can say and so on. But if we think about daily life, you know, North Korean people on a Tuesday morning don't wake up thinking like, oh, I'm North Korean, you know, and like thinking about Kim Jong-un, or, you know, like engaging in political stuff straight away. Their Tuesday morning in a lot of ways looks similar to the lives of families around the world, right? You know, there's a lot of life which is just the same. You know, parents are very proud of their children. Sometimes people don't get on with their, you know, their mother-in-law. You know, people fall in love, they make jokes with each other. There's just so much of life which is very relatable that I don't think gets portrayed enough in the media. Maybe one of the things, and it's, you know, it's not perfect, there's no perfect media product out there, but one of the things that broke through in a new way recently was Crash Landing on You. I don't know how everybody feels about that in this call, but I really appreciated it because it did show more aspects of North Korean people's lives. It showed, you know, like nice North Korean characters and bad North Korean characters, funny people, smart people, slightly less smart people. You know, it showed like people being cool, people being capable, you know, just a range of North Korean characters, like there is a range of South Korean characters or American characters in life. And so for me, that was a positive thing. It made North Korea a much more three-dimensional place with poor people and rich people and people in the middle, and you know, this fuller picture. But yeah, Eunhee, I don't know if you would have anything to add. Like, what would you wish South Korean media or international media shows more about North Korea?
I think like I don't I don't have idea what I have to say. You just like deliver all the messages that I want to deliver. But I want the
Okay.
media to focus on the individual's life in North Korea, not about the like political situation, not about the economic situation anymore. We have enough, information in like about it. So now it's time to focus on the individual's life. How much North Koreans are like strong, and how much they have strong mentality to survive from the famine and from the like the very low economic situation you never imagined about your life. So that it's time to see and have knowledge about what is the story of behind the story you haven't seen from the media. And also audiences have to recognize about like that scene, what is the story of those story you have seen from the media, what you have seen from the North Korean defectors story. That is what I want to deliver.
I think related to that, Kayla Lee asked a question in the chat, asked for Eunhee, about hearing some of your favorite stories that you mentioned earlier when you were leaving Now On My Way to Meet You. If you want to share anything, if you have anything that you want to share, just feel free.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with the reasons why I started on the media. So before I was just so shameful that I'm from North Korea because of my identity as a North Korean defector. Wasn't easy to get a job and wasn't easy to belong with the South Koreans. So I was hide my identity and I was like pretend to be South Korean, but I couldn't hide it because of my different accent. And people like see me like a monkey in the zoo and from the people from the other planet. And I thought like, okay, not to tell about my identity, and I had to change my accent as a like a perfect South Koreans who live in Seoul, not from the like Busan and other province. So after 6 months, no one asked me where I'm from, but before that I was asked a lot of questions where I'm from. And South Korea is not a country like America, have different culturing backgrounds and diversity. So we don't like South Koreans never exposed themselves to experience of diversity of background, and it's new for them. So okay, like there is a saying, if you go to Rome, you have to follow their culture as well. So what I thought, okay, if I change this accent as a like a Seoul people, no one asked me, no one treat me differently. But after a few years, I had experience to meet lots of people from other countries, and they started to teach me the English because it wasn't easy to survive in South Korea without knowing the Konglish words, which is accepting the English, like Korean accepted the English and then make you just mix it up. So if you, for like example, when you go to like a Paris baguette, like apple pie or bagel, they call also apple pie, then bagel. So you cannot survive. You cannot even sell the products to customers. When they ask you, hey, what is inside? What kind of ingredients? Like I couldn't speak up because I never exposed to how to experience that product in my life. So I had to learn English, and then I met lots of people from other countries, and also people who have different background stories, I realized that there are more people to support North Koreans rather than just like treat us differently and then criticize us. And I realized that being a different person, being like having a different background is the factor you have to be proud of and you have to use to be better person. And that's why I started like proud of my identity as a North Korean defector. And I started, okay, if I wanna share my stories, I have to be on the stage to speak about like the reason made me to was on the show Imangap. And like after few months, I realized that that is not the that was my purpose to share my story with that media like factors, because they already made questions and they sent us every, I think every week the authors made questions what they want to deliver to audiences who want to hear about North Korea, and we have to just fill the question answers based on the questions what authors and what producers made already, and it wasn't fun anymore. And when you talk about the North Korea based on the fixed questions, provided questions, you cannot deliver the diversity, the stories you had experienced it. And also the other the reason is I want to make money because I'm like by myself. There is no one to support me, so I needed to money to survive in this country. But one thing what I concerned about the TV show was like you have to survive there as well. There are North Korean defectors to speak about North Korea, and you have to survive among the other North Korean defectors. So when you don't want to talk much, you can be cancelled and you cannot be there anymore. So somehow you could make like the other stories what you hear about others like from other people's life, and that is not a fact you had experience, but you just deliver the stories you've heard from the other media and from the other person's life. That was not a North Korea you or actually experienced. It's just delivering stuff that there is no filtering. You like everyone can check that whether it is a fact or not, and made me seek about talk about the North Korea. And like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore, just I want to do what I want, and money is not important for me because I already worked at a company, so I save the money. Okay, why I have to be there? And some reason is also like people exploited us, like of course in capitalism, so you have to deal with that, like your bosses and also the authorities are gonna exploit you to use for their purpose. Also media as well, they have to make income, so they're gonna exploit North Korean vectors to make a fake stories somehow. And North Koreans also have to survive to make money, so they will make their the other stories as well. So there are many layers of North Korean stories. So that was my experience of media.
Thank you for that. I think that provided a lot of insight. Young also had a question for you in the chat. It says, as you become an increasingly public figure, do you fear that there may be repercussions to your friends or family in North Korea because of your publicity?
I'm not a famous person, so there is no any effects to towards my family members who live in North Korea. And also, I don't have parents because they passed away when I was young, and I was raised by grandparents, but they are older, and it was like 5 years ago to contact with my grandma. I haven't contact yet, but I don't want to do because she's older and she is already over 80 or 85. 5 years ago, it was painful after contacting with my grandmother. We couldn't say much because there is a bug, so you have to be careful what you wanna say. And for 4 hours, I called with my grandmother, but it was just so painful experience for me. Like humans, based on humans' desire, when you want to call after calling with your parents who live in North Korea or like relatives, you want to meet them and you want to live with them. That was my desire after calling with my grandmother, but it was not easy for me. I was just starting my life in South Korea, and I knew the he she is gonna die one day, and if I continue to contact with her, one day I will get the painful news that she passed away. I thought if I heard that story of my grandmother's news, I couldn't, stand up to live anymore. So okay, I'm gonna remember her alive in my mind forever, and just stop thinking about my past. Just think about the like a future, what I can make now.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, yeah, thank you. Um, I think in related relation to that, do you think that North Korean defectors such as yourself have an important role in creating a new media portrayal of North Korea?
Yes, I can say confidently, I can say yes. We have lots of important rules for North Korea uh, because we are like, I'm a North Korean, but I'm also a representative of North Korea and representative of 25 million people living in North Korea. Because when you see North Korean defectors, you always related to North Korea, including Kim Jong Un and Kim Il Sung and other family members. So your behavior will be by defined all the time related to North Korean issues. So we have to like first of all, I can say it just depends on person. What kind of purpose you have? I have important roles to make my people be free, but other North Koreans might think like, oh, it's not important. I'm in South Korea. Why have to be all the time concerned about North Korea? I just wanna live my life freely in South Korea. So I can say it depends on person's perspective, but for me, it's important because living well uh, is the best way you can show who you are, and also represent of North Korea, so that many people will join with us and many people will believe your potential, what you can make and what you can progress of your life and of your country. That's why the living well and then try to do best for your life is the important duty for me.
Thank you. Yeah, and Sokeel, you also have met a lot of North Korean defectors. Would you say that overall a lot of them want to portray their lives on media to like help change that view?
Um, to be honest, most probably don't, right? If we think about more than 30,000 North Koreans that have come to South Korea, that's, some are children, some are in university, some are in their 30s, 40s, even grandparents. Most people don't have the time or energy, frankly, maybe too busy taking care of their kids, and maybe not that interested. As Eunhee said, everybody has different motivations, and a lot of people, and it's very understandable, come here and they may just focus on their own lives, and it may be that they're studying, they're working hard, they're providing for their own family. Sometimes they're providing for their family in South Korea. Sometimes they may have to save up money that they can send back to family in North Korea as well. A lot of North Korean refugees do that. They send thousands of dollars back to their home communities in North Korea through illicit broker channels. So a lot of people are focused on that kind of stuff, and that's understandable. Not everybody has to be an activist, and probably not everybody can be an activist or a public voice. As Eunhee kind of referenced as well, if you speak out in the media, there may be repercussions on family. If you have close family that still live in North Korea, and if the North Korean government can trace that, that's something that a lot of North Korean defectors, especially when they first come to South Korea, something that they're concerned about, and it's a reason why a lot of people wouldn't do media interviews as soon as they come to South Korea, or they would be, very kind of concerned about changing their name, or not showing their face in the media. And so if they did an interview, just using blurs or the back of their head. So that's one of the reasons, I think, why there's been a lack of North Korean voices in South Korea and internationally. But that has been changing, especially young North Korean defectors. And for whatever reason, it may be that their whole family defected to South Korea, and so they feel like people are safe. Or it may be that, their family situation means that they don't feel like there's going to be people that are going to suffer in North Korea. Or it may be that they just think that it's, their family is going to be okay, and it's more important that they speak out. They speak that, their truth. They speak about the North Korean government, and share stories and voices of North Korean people. So there are more young North Koreans, especially like that these days, and some of it is through traditional media, and increasingly over the last few years, I think especially over the last 1 year, 2 years, there have been so many YouTube that have been started by people from North Korea who now live in South Korea, or some in the United States. A lot of these are, in the Korean language, as you would expect, but some of them are starting to, make content in English as well. And this is really valuable, this opportunity for North Koreans to be able to interact directly with South Korean and international audiences without any kind of filter, being able to answer questions, being able to talk about topical things, also just being able to make fun content. We need to see that aspect of North Koreans as well. It doesn't all have to be like super serious. So that's been a positive trend in the last, especially 1 to 2 years.
Thank you so much for that. I think it's around 10 more minutes before 8, and we just really want to be respectful of your guys' time. I know, especially for both Eunhee and Sokeel, they're both in South Korea right now, and they woke up just to do this for us. So thank you so much for coming. And in the chat, I'm going to send out a link tree with ways that you, as someone who came and viewed, can learn more and help. That'll have links to Eunhee's YouTube channel and places that you can learn more just about media portrayal in general. So please check that out. And if you, Eunhee or Sokeel, have any last thoughts, anything that you want to say before we end this meeting?
Not off the top of my head. I guess this is also a last chance for anybody to drop a question in the chat. If anybody has a question for either of us, maybe especially for Eunhee, this is a rare opportunity to ask. I guess you could ask anything, right? To Eunhee, if she's okay with that, even if it's not directly about media portrayal.
Yeah,
we'll see if people are typing away. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I saw a question in the chat earlier too. This was for Eunhee as well. This is not really related to media portrayal, but I think it's important. What are your opinions, and how do you feel towards the reunification of North and South Korea?
Oh, I had a strong opinion of reunification, actually. When I was in North Korea, I deadly, want to be unified. But since I had my new life in South Korea, where I realized that South Korea and North Korea cannot be one anymore for short term because of different lifestyle, because of different political situation. So for me, the reunification means it's North Korea has to open their political situation openly and first, so South Koreans and North Koreans can exchange their lives, because even though we share one language, we can understand, but the lifestyle has changed a lot over 7 decades. The South Koreans cannot understand North Koreans, and also North Koreans cannot understand South Koreans' life and perspective. So we have to make that environment that, South Koreans and North Koreans exchange their lives first to learn each other, what is differences, and then the politicians, authorities make a decision whether North Korea and South Korea make a one country. But I don't think the making one country as a reunification status is not that important for people, because many young people and lots of people in South Korea don't agree with that idea. And the purpose of reunification South Koreans receive from the government, from the school, is because of we are one country before. That's why we have to make it reunified. But it doesn't make sense anymore for young generations. Like, you never had any experience with the North Koreans, why they have to do, and why they have to obligation to make their lives with the people who never contact and who never related with their lives. So, like, in my opinion, just North Korea has to open first, so many people can learn about North Korea, which is the isolated country in this world, never exposed their lifestyle, and kind of like never experienced the individual's life in North Korea. So that was my opinion. Don't need it to be one country anymore.
Yeah, I think just to add my 2 cents on that, I think that that's a really great point. I think that broadly, if we think and talk about reunification, I think that we need to have a much broader conversation. Actually, I think that a lot of time we just see reunification as a political event, like, 2 countries become one country, 2 governments become one government, you have 2 flags become one flag, but that's just a tiny part of a potential reunification. And let's say for reunification, it does actually happen. There's not just that kind of simple political event of reunification, but there's all 2 countries becoming one country at the end of the day. It means beyond the politics, it means 2 economies becoming one economy, 2 cultures, not necessarily becoming just one identical culture, but integrating. It means 2 identities, 2 of so many different things becoming one, and a lot of those things will take generations, decades. In some aspects, actually, it will take hundreds of years. And so I think when we talk about reunification, we really need to zoom out and have a much broader and frankly more honest conversation. I agree with Eunhee, the old conversation about reunification, which was basically like, we should reunify because we used to be one country, and so we should go back to that. I think that that's an old conversation. I don't think that it really works for the young generation in South Korea today, and increasingly the young generation in North Korea as well. I think that we need to have an open and honest conversation on what, genuinely, like, what should be the future of the Korean Peninsula, and not deciding that that's reunification and then just talking about like, how do we get reunification, or like what do we do after reunification. We should even be talking frankly about whether that's the answer, not just deciding that's the answer and then moving on from that. And I think that that's the case even if you think that reunification should happen. I think that at the stage that we're at right now, we should have more conversations even leading up to that decision, and it shouldn't be just taken as a given.
If I added a little bit, to think about it, 34,000 North Korean defectors live in 50 million population in South Korea. Even 34 North Korean defectors cannot belong with the South Koreans. They cannot integrate with the South Koreans. How can we think about, 25 million people can live in South Korea, and with the totally people who have different backgrounds, different stories. So it's not easy to be one country now, so for short term, because before the making one country or whatever, we have to open up to learn each other.
Yeah, I completely agree. Very quick, because we only have 3 minutes left. I think Kayla had a question in the chat. How can we help empower those still in North Korea then, since we know like it's not like the borders are open or anything? How can we help North Korean people and empower them and make their voices heard?
Eunhee, you want to go first?
Like I'm not a person who work with the organization. You are director and you lead the organization, so like you have more stories to deliver with this message, Sokeel.
Okay. Well, I'll take a shot, and then if you want to add anything, then you can. So, I think that there's four things that we should think about, and you know, this is a list that you can take your pick from, kind of thing. I think that as we've been doing today, and as a lot of the people on this call have been doing in general, I think the first thing is to listen to the stories and voices of North Korean people. Whether that's in some of the broadcast shows or the YouTube channels that North Koreans are making, books and articles written by North Korean people as well. I think the core thing should be trying to learn about this issue by learning from North Korean people, listening and learning from the perspective of North Korean people about this issue. I think the second thing is then amplifying those voices and stories. It could be something as simple as if you read a book by a North Korean refugee or defector, then sharing that with your friends, talking about it with your friends. If you watch an interesting video made by a North Korean defector, to share that with your social media networks. Bring this kind of stuff to bigger audiences that you're connected to that may not know that there are North Koreans sharing these kind of stories. There's a lot that North Korean defectors can do by themselves, but if they have allies like the people in this call that are standing up for them and helping to provide a platform so that their voice and story can get out to even bigger audiences, then that's going to be a multiplier effect for those North Korean voices and the strength of that. I think the third thing is to show your support and show your allyship for North Korean people. This is an area with massive potential. I think actually, we show our identity or our support for various causes in all sorts of different ways. There's symbols or hashtags that show. One example is like showing on social media that you love BTS or that you support the Black Lives Matters movement, or all these kind of things. So far, there's not been the equivalent for supporting North Korean people. There's not been that symbol, that hashtag, that public show of support, which is really important, I think, to build an international movement and to show North Korean defectors and refugees, and ultimately even when we can make ways of doing that, and we can, to show this to people inside North Korea, to show North Koreans that they have supporters and allies, people that care, people that listen, people that want to know more about them and connect and support them. So showing your support, it could be a t-shirt, it could be a hashtag, it could be a symbol, it could be online, it could be offline. People can get creative with that. And then the last thing, the fourth thing, is to give or fundraise. There are activists and NGOs working on this issue. We're one of them, right? Liberty in North Korea is one of the NGOs. There are other groups and activists working especially here in South Korea, and especially these days, with the way that the economy is and the way that some of the kind of giving has changed with the pandemic. A lot of groups are struggling, and these are groups that do real good work on the ground, supporting North Korean refugees, or pursuing other ways of trying to change the situation inside North Korea and increase the chances of the North Korean people achieving their own freedom, including, for instance, by getting more information and media into North Korea, because obviously there's a massive kind of information and media problem in that country as well that can be helped by getting more information and media from the outside world to North Korean people. So those four things, again, I think it's listening to North Korean voices and stories, amplifying North Korean voices, showing your support in various ways, online and offline, and then if you can, give or fundraise so that more activists and NGOs can do more good work to support North Korean people and to ultimately, bring forward North Korean people achieving their freedom and liberty.
Yes, thank you so much. I think that's very helpful. Everyone, that his 4 things that he listed, how you can help, it's in the chat, and you can again check out that link tree that Regen Movement made for us. Thank you all so much again for coming. Thank you, Eunhee and Sokeel, for coming as well, giving us your time. And to Regen Movement, thank you for helping us host this. There's nothing else. I think this event is all good, unless you guys want to stay back. We can take a quick picture, actually. That might be a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you guys want to turn on your cameras real quick, and we'll take a quick screenshot, whoever wants to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And then I'll take a quick screenshot and we can all go rest and get on with our day. Good?
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you to everybody at Regen and also the Link Emory chapter. Really appreciate you organizing this. This is fun.